Live? Live. Welcome to True Health Tuesday, and the truth will set you free. Yeah, it's been 3 weeks. Okay, I forgot the intro. Okay, this one, viruses and germ theory. Now, this is for some of my friends in Thailand, and, you know, now, short on the side, long on the top, it's Bangkok style, baby. Okay, you know, there's a lot of people in here already doing that style. Thanks for leading the way. Okay, this was one of the talks that was wiped out, one of the first ones when the censorship became more apparent back in 2020. So I've changed it a little bit. I'm going to recommend some dangerous books. Okay, Dissolving Illusions by Susan Humphreys and Roman Bisterick, and The Dream and Lie of Louis Pasteur. You know, but when we say germ theory, it's crazy. Okay, when you think of, is this a theory or is this a religion? Now, we are going to have the apprenticeship program next week, and we're going to expand on how your body adapts, and we're also going to get into stuff that is wild. It's like Stefan Lanka, a couple of years ago, had a €100,000 reward for anyone that could prove that measles virus exists and that measles virus causes measles. Okay, no one claimed the prize, and it was proved in a court that he was right. Okay, so all that stuff we can't talk about here. Okay, but I can mention it because it's going to be next week. But those that are supporting the Dr. B VIP, you're going to be watching this uninterrupted. Also, Extreme Health Academy, amazing group. You can still get on there for 2 weeks for no charge, Bergman 14, and then we're posting it everywhere we can because shadow banned, demonetized, we are still here. Okay, it's interesting because I just saw, now this is old information from 2009, okay, and also from 2018. They're having a big crisis in our military, not being able to find people to join, to get involved in it. And then there's certain requirements that they're putting forth, which is depleting our people that are supposed to protect our country even further. But if you had a species, okay, any species on the planet that more than half of the kids have a chronic illness or disease, that means that there's something wrong. Now, when we talk about immune system, there is no specific system called the immune. It's like you got the pulmonary, digestive tract. So each area of the body is going to respond to certain insults or pathogens in a certain fashion. So we can call it an immune system. So the things that weaken your body's ability to respond to environmental stimuli are stress, physical, chemical, emotional stress. And it's really how you adapt to it. So there's healthy reactions, there's unhealthy reactions. All medications, and I'm talking steroids, blood pressure, cholesterol, injectables, everything. Nutrient deficiencies, of course that, because you can't mount a defense if you don't have the raw materials. Sedentary lifestyle, fatigue, it's perfect. But what helps your body's response? Healthy stress. With unhealthy stress, okay, too much, you weaken it, but without stress, you can't mount a response. So you need healthy stress. And we're going to cover those. Because we're in an insane environment. I mean, you got to figure 500 years from now, they're going to look back and say, wait a second, you were diagnosed that the doctor was smarter than your own physiology, so the doctor gave you a toxic chemical to lower your blood pressure because he felt that it wasn't appropriate for your adaptation. Okay, that's the environment we're living in. So if you actually think that's based in science, you've lost your freaking mind. Okay, your body is going to adapt correctly 100% of the time. But we're in an era now where toxic chemicals that have a myriad of effects are prescribed, and we're in a political climate where the people that came up with that chemical assault on your system are actually being funded by the system to do it. So the media is controlled and everything else. So if you are taking medications, realize that all medications slow or stop a metabolic process, and you're a sea of metabolic processes. So find out why you're taking them and fire the doctor or find out the reason for it. Nutrient sufficiencies. So that means you got the right raw materials. You can mount your defense. Active lifestyle, sleep. It can't be that simple. Because, I mean, you've gone through 2.5 years of propaganda. So we've got two people, one that says germs cause disease, another says germs are always there, it has to do with your immune system or the health of your body to respond. You know, like Virchow, if I could live my life over again, I would devote it to proving that germs seek their natural habitat, diseased tissue, rather than being cause of the disease. Now, this would be a great time to bring up the death rates of different issues over the last 2.5 years, which I can't. Okay, but let's just go this. Okay, so now you may have heard that this person is a super spreader. No, I'm not pointing at you. No, I would be self-conscious too. I'm pointing in between all three of you. Okay, but super spreader, what does that mean? That means that one person can give it to another person, and that person can give it to two more, and then soon it goes all over the place, so you got to be careful. Okay, now, not only is that completely ignorant, okay, because it assumes that 100% susceptibility, but it also assumes that this stuff spreads like wildfire. And just, you know, because right now, you know, people are throwing a brick at their computer, pulling their hair out and saying, no, that's what Fauci says. Okay, well, okay, 10 people walk through a forest. They all get bit by ticks. They happen to be in Lyme, Connecticut. Do they all get Lyme disease? No. So what's the difference? Okay, 100 people go through a swamp. They all get bit by mosquitoes containing malaria. Do they all get malaria? No. And this is how I walk doctors through that are stuck in the paradigm that a germ is going to cause disease. You know, let me get that cancer-causing agent, Perel, over here, you know, because I want to destroy the normal flora on my skin, and I want to have it pierce my skin so I can weaken my immune system, because that's what everybody else is doing. You understand that's insane? This can't happen. It never can. If you could talk about Ebola, okay, you've got a couple of things with certain pathogens. They can be either really infectious and not that deadly, or really deadly and not that infectious. Okay, and there are people that recover from Ebola. But just know that this is impossible. This can't happen. Okay, not with the way human beings work. Now this area, I had to censor. Okay, hopefully this will get by everyone. But you've got certain diseases, okay, that from nutrient deficiencies, and certain diseases like smallpox, polio, diphtheria, pertussis, and measles that you may have an opinion of. Okay, well, let's look at the actual facts. And we're going to look at polio. Because what do the zealots, and now realize I'm not talking about scientific discussion, because 100 years from now, they're going to be looking back at your interventions. Okay, was this intelligent or was this insane? Okay, just think of this, okay, but what did the zealots say? Well, you know, these interventions, they wiped out smallpox, they wiped out polio. Okay, with no data to support that, so let's just look at it. Polio killed about 1 in 100,000. That means that you had a 99.999% chance of not dying from polio. Okay, and it's an enteric disease that's been around for thousands of years. Measles, 1 in 500,000. Or the average person had a 99.9998% chance of not dying. Okay, now I know what you're thinking of. If these diseases were not that deadly, where did the panic come? We're going to go into that in the second part. Pertussis, now 1 in 77,000. That means that the average person had a 99.997% chance of not having an issue with it. Tetanus, 1 in 200,000. Okay, now this was in the 1940s. It's interesting that the wound care, and this was before the tetanus vaccine, okay, it actually dropped the death rate to where it was almost nothing, or 99.999%. Can you see the difference? Mumps, rubella, diphtheria, chickenpox, hepatitis B, Hib, all of these things, over 99.9% of the population is not going to have an issue with. They won't die. So, you know, you might think, well, where's the advertisement coming from? It's interesting, I went to the CDC site because back before, and this is really hard to go back in time, and I mean back in time, pre-2020. Whoa, I know your head just blew up. I can't think back that far. Okay, so I went to the CDC site because we used to be concerned about an epidemic that's affecting, I don't know, what is it, 1 in 100, 1 in 60, 1 in 50, okay, kids. It was called autism. Okay, and now no one's talking about that because they're panicked about something that 99.9% of the population won't have an issue with. So I went on the CDC site just a few minutes ago, and I found out that they've been compiling data every 2 years since about 2000, except it stopped in 2018. There's no 2020, there's no 2022 data. Why, I don't know. But it turns out that it started in 1 to 1 in 50, 150. In 2018, 1 in 44. In California, it's 1 in 24 children have this devastating neurologic disorder that's wiping them out. Now, this has nothing to do with any, supposition for it. I'm just showing you data, okay? Where this comes from, we can't talk about, because science, even though it's a discussion, you can't even mention this, okay? Now, so let's look at a virus. What is a virus? A virus is not alive. It's a well-organized molecular parasite. That means that you have viruses on your skin, in your intestinal tract, on your eyes, all around you, and it's not a living organism. It's a well-organized molecular parasite. That means that parasites, they have to grow on weakened tissue. Okay, they don't grow on healthy tissue. This is why when we went over the recovery and infectious rates of that, 99.99% of the population isn't going to have an issue. 45% of your DNA is viral in origin. Why is that? What's the purpose of this? Your double-stranded DNA is a virus hotel. Viruses are responsible for 2 critical important functions: variation and adaptation. Yes, it is the virus behind much of what is termed evolution. So think of this. So our species is found from the desert to the Arctic. Okay, I know. Climate change will kill us all. Okay, our species is found from the desert to the Arctic. Okay, unless you're a psychotic person that only watches TV. Okay, so now, how do we live that way? Well, every time we're together, we share information. Okay, I share all of my environment, you share all of your environment, so that if you come to my world, you can live. I come to your world, you can, I'll live. And so this sharing is partly sharing proteins and amino acids, and that's what it is. So we're sharing this so that we can survive. So it transfers information. And so when you look at this, it is, so when people are afraid, and I get a lot of questions, what about viral shedding? What about the people who have had this, and they're shedding the spike protein? Should we be afraid? No, this is how human beings are. Don't worry about it. Work on physical, chemical, emotional stress. So you're going to survive just fine. And this is what we're designed to do. Viruses are vital to our ecosystem. In fact, you have 70 trillion cells on average. You have 10 times that number in bacteria. Okay, so that's 700 trillion. You have 10 times the bacteria of viruses. And you have countless, more than that, of molds and funguses and yeast and everything. In fact, on your skin, on my skin, I've got staph epididymis, okay, which protects me from Staph aureus, okay? And I mean, you are a symbiote. You are designed to live here. And if you're so ignorant to the fact that you're afraid of viruses, funguses, or bacteria, okay, you will not survive because you were actually designed to live on this planet. They're able to move genetic information between hosts, but we don't understand how this has influenced and continues to influence the evolution of our species. Now, Theobald Smith, brilliant guy, okay, brilliant guy. He actually found out that doing some injectables that, and the quote that he gave years ago, it was, any protein that hasn't been tempered by digestion that makes it into the bloodstream can activate the immune system. And it was called the Theobald-Smith phenomenon. We now call it anaphylaxis. And I think he actually won the Nobel Prize for coming up with that, or understanding that since proteins, and this is what viruses are, if they're not broken down by digestion and they get into the bloodstream, it can stimulate an immune system response or an autoimmune condition, anaphylactic shock he came up with. He has this formula which makes sense. The resistance of host, anything you change on the bottom of an equation, has a massive effect on the top, massive. So the resistance of host has to do with the health of your entire body and your experience of this. So you divide the virulence of the pathogen, like how tough it is, the number of pathogens, the opening size that allow the pathogens in, and divided by the resistance of host is the severity of disease. So if you have a normal resistance, you sleep good, you eat good, you work good, you're not taking medications, and you're exposed to those diseases we just talked about, you have a 99.9% chance of having no disease or a very less severe disease and not having a problem with it. Does that make sense? So you got to have the resistance of the host. Germ theory, limitations of the germ theory. The germ theory, infectious disease, is primarily caused by the transmission of an organism to one host, is a gross oversimplification. Now, this is the Lancet. The germ theory has become dogma. It neglects many of the other factors that have a part to play in deciding whether the host germ environment complex lead to infection. Susceptibility, genetic constitution, behavior, socioeconomic determinants. Socioeconomic determinants? Whoa! Think of that. This is an article from 1968. And they're saying if there's an economic downturn, that there might cause, I don't know, what do you think? Stress? Okay. That may be isolating people, that might cause stress, weakening the immune system. And I know what you're thinking about. You're thinking about the governmental interventions over the last 2 years. Was that helping the immune system or hurting it? Don't think that way, sir. Okay, so there's one in every crowd. Okay, independent thinker. Again, germs seek their natural habitat than diseased tissue rather than being cause of the disease. Flies do not cause garbage. That means if you're going to transfer a virus, which viruses are designed to clean up dead tissue and transfer information, you have to have a weak and susceptible host. This is why the CDC said 3.8 comorbid conditions you had to have in order to do something with something that I can't talk about. Okay, the International Journal of Vaccination and Vaccines, who had their finger on the magic of life. Now think of this article, listen to this. Beauchamp is saying that it's not the pathogen, it's not the bad guy. It has to do with the host. So if you have a strong, healthy response, like you sleep good, you eat good, you're designed, you have physical, chemical, emotional stress handled well, you're bulletproof. This stuff is just going to bounce off you. You're going to get the information transferred, you're going to be fine. How often does that occur? Well, 99.9% chance of the diseases I just mentioned, which the government is trying to make you scared of. So Beauchamp is saying that it's the terrain that matters, not the pathogen, because the pathogens are everywhere. So it's with Beauchamp. Had the profound voice of his science not been silenced, much of humankind may have been spared the worst aspects of infectious or vital stressors of the 20th century. Okay, now I know what you're thinking. Holy shit. If somebody said this, just looking back at the last couple of years, oh, dude. Okay, would you like to go back and say, well, the science, if there was an equal footing, that there wasn't censorship, perhaps interventions may have been different. At least we would have understood much more clearly why we have them. Fortunately, Beauchamp's work has been kept alive by a small, successive band of truth seekers. Again, they're not talking about the last 2 years, so okay. Please sneeze on my child. New England Journal of Medicine. This is actually an article saying that children raised in environments, okay, like crowded childcare, around animals, okay, around around people coughing and sneezing, okay, are actually better for them. Generally, parents agree that children who attend daycare or have older siblings have more frequent infections. Okay, so you put a kid in this environment, they're going to cough and sneeze. We used to call them snot-nosed kids. Anybody remember the term snot-nosed kids? You got it. Why don't you say snot-nosed old people? Because they've already been exposed to every friggin' thing, and they're not going to have those reactions. So yeah, snot-nosed kids, okay? It wasn't an insult. Surprised to learn, however, that this tendency may protect their younger children from asthma. Questions remain concerning the interplay of host characteristics, the timing and nature of microbial and viral exposures, and a myriad of other environmental factors with regard to the development of asthma. So how often, how exposure, so we go back to the Theobald Smith formula, you keep the kids healthy and let them play. This is, I know, that's how you were raised, that's how you were raised, it's called normal. Okay? Advances in basic science by providing insight into naturally occurring events that can change epidemiologic features of a disease. Those of us who share the furtive guilt of having left a marginally ill toddler at daycare also find these findings offer a sense of relief. Perhaps we're only doing our part to restore the Th1, Th2 balance that stem from the rising tide of asthma and allergic diseases. So by dropping your sick kid off at childcare, you're helping all of the children. Okay? I know. I'm just saying, can you imagine telling this to the freaked out parent in Orange County? Okay, just for the heck of it. Okay. It's like, blasphemer, give me the Purell. Okay, so this is what your body does. If you have a weakened immune system, so now let me see, a virus, it's not alive. It's a parasite, so you'd have to have dead tissue somewhere in your body. Now, around every orifice you got mucous membranes there. Okay, and this is a friggin' magnet to attract anything up there, okay? So if you have dead tissue because you are a sick person and you're not healthy and you slept poorly and all the other stuff, then the pathogen is going to be walled off by the mucus. This is what mucus does. Of course, if you're psychotic and you're watching television, you're going to take some of those drugs to decrease the swelling in the mucous membranes and even decrease the mucus, even though that's your first line of defense. Then you develop a what? I know, good. It's a hint. I would do this all the time when I was teaching, okay? They'd say you weren't fair, bullshit. Fever, okay? Why? It's your first response, because for every 1 degree increase in temperature, the speed of your immune system doubles. Viruses, funguses, and bacteria die at a higher temperature. It's an intelligent response. And so when people say, well, what's my child has 100 fever, 101. And I said, okay, cool. Throw the thermometer away, because obviously your panic is going to scare the child. But if I have 103 fever, and I'm shivering, what do I need? I need a freaking blanket. If I have 101 fever and I'm sweating, what am I trying to do? Cool off. Use observation. Use what your frigging grandmother did and the last 10,000 generations. If you're shivering, you're trying to heat your body up. Use common sense. Increase mucus production, that's fantastic. Eliminate the dead, that means diarrhea, coughing, sneezing. What do we say? Better out than in, baby, okay? And this is how you do it. Here's out of the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology. Children who ran a fever during their first year were less likely to develop allergies later in life. Wait, children who ran a fever in their first year were less likely to develop allergies later in life. We have a sea of allergy problems because of reaction to foreign proteins. Fever stimulates rapid production of blood cells. Research shows letting a fever run its course will reduce the length and severity of illness and colds. Oh my God, it's trusting the body is designed to live here. The brain has integral regulatory mechanisms that prevent fevers caused by infections from running higher than 105 to 106 degrees. The body temperature has to get over 108 degrees to cause damage, and that's only like locking a kid into a hot car in the summertime. And we actually have certain ways to deal with cancers where we artificially raise the blood temperature to 107 that destroys a lot of the pathogens, which you don't really need to do if you just work with a regular immune system. So wow, that's amazing. Yeah, okay, this is all the stuff I got to tell parents and freaked out husbands and wives. Now, genes. Okay, so you're designed to live here. You're designed to have thousands of bacteria and viruses on you. Without those thousands of bacteria, viruses, and funguses, you die. So you are a symbiote. So you have a genetic makeup to be on this planet. You don't have to be afraid of other people. But epigenetics, that's control above the genes. Mismanaged, disorganized epigenomes lead to disease. Well, what would do that? Well, epigenetic changes. It turns out when you're in a psychotic environment where you're altering someone's physiology with a chemical, yes, that's called medical care. It's called the pharmaceutical industry. Yes, I know they run the media and they run the government. Okay, just settle down, okay? I'll be turning the box over in the FEMA camp and keep going on this. Okay, but it turns out that cholesterol-lowering drugs, antidepressants, blood pressure drugs, contraceptives, anti-inflammatories, all the stuff that you would give somebody if you're smarter than their own physiology. Okay, I know, it hurt. It hurt to get that truth, didn't it? Okay. Well, it turns out permanent changes in the epigenome. Good God, what could that do to a population? Particularly one where 54% of their children have a chronic illness that they'll never recover from. Holy it can cause heart disease, cancer, mental disorder, obesity, diabetes, leukemia, bipolar, schizophrenia, and many, many more. So are these interventions altering future generations? Wow. Well, antibiotics weaken the immune system. Wait a second, antibiotics, that's a poisonous mold. Okay, Fleming came up with, okay, because he left a sandwich on a board somewhere and a piece of moldy bread got down there. Antibiotics, how many times? And they don't work against viruses. Why would somebody use that? Well, for one, if you've got a sick kid and your doctor goes in and says, look, have the fever run its course, give the kids some vitamin D3, some vitamin C, bundle them up when they're shivering and cool them off when they're sweating, okay, you'd say, bull, I'm not going to pay you a dime for that. My mother told me that before I came over. You understand? Yeah, so the doctor has to spend money or give you a prescription. Okay, now, antibiotics have no effect on viruses that cause colds. Over $1 billion in prescriptions, $2.9 billion in over-the-counter drugs. So what do you think those drugs are doing? They're reducing the fever. They're weakening the immune system response. None of them are helping the situation. Steroids suppress the immune system. You reduce the fever. You're causing it weakens the immune system. Double-blind placebo-controlled trial to study the effects of over-the-counter anti-fever medications on viral shedding and response. It weakens your immune system response. Then you've got the chemical assault. Okay, genetically modified organisms. Have you ever heard of an intervention in agriculture or medicine that has gone out of control? Okay, like, oh, I don't know, glyphosates. It's safe and effective. No, that's not what they say about it. Okay, sorry. Okay, it's just an herbicide and a mineral chelator that happens to give us a swath 500 miles on either side of the Mississippi called the cancer belt now, because it is a cancer-causing agent that they've proven in court. Mineral chelator, patented antibiotic, which destroys the gut flora. But don't worry. A lot of the organisms, like they have Bt toxins, and this was a great idea, okay? You have a corn plant, so you're going to turn the pollen poisonous. So any insect that eats that pollen will have their gut destroyed. And you're concerned that what if people eat the corn? No, it's only for cattle food. Don't worry about that. No, it's generally recognized as safe. That's called a GRAS label, so you don't even need to test it. Here, you got a campaign? No problem, just pass it, baby. I know you're on that committee. Okay, this is the psycho world. Well, they found this BT corn. It survived the animal's digestion tract, survived the preparation of the meat, survived the mom's digestive tract. Now we're seeing it in the umbilical cords and breast milk. Now, it destroyed the insect's digestive tract. Do you think it could negatively affect the humans? How many generations? Nobody knows. So we are under a constant state of stress. You have no reason at all to be afraid of any virus, okay, or any bacteria or any fungus. But you do need to understand that you're designed to live here. So you have physical stress, you have chemical stress, and you have emotional stress. Okay, luckily most of the chemical and emotional stress you can eliminate by turning off the television. Okay, now it's interesting, nearly all fruits and vegetables have NF-κB inhibitors. NF-κB is a factor in Alzheimer's, cancer, Crohn's, virtually every degenerative condition around. Wait, did I just say that almost every fruit and vegetable decreases the occurrence of this? Does that mean if you have Crohn's or Alzheimer's or osteoporosis or AIDS or any of that, that just changing your diet? Okay, now again, this is going to hurt a lot of people's brains that are stuck in this swamp of my doctor knows best. Ask your doctor if this is right for you. Okay, but this is what you do to communicate to people whose brains are mired in the swamp. Okay, I don't care how many drugs you're taking. You and me, we're left alone on a deserted island. You have no access to pharmaceuticals. You only have fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fresh fish, and fresh water to eat. Okay, you have no access to pharmaceuticals. Okay, does your health improve or decline? What does 100% of people say? My health will improve. Yeah, and honestly, deep in your heart, aren't you thinking, how cool would that be to just be on a deserted island? Oh my God, looking up at the sky and so, oh Jesus. You know, no television, yeah. Okay, vitamin D. It seems too simple, but it's absolutely vital for digestion, function, skeleton, depression, nervous system development. And this is why in Europe, Northern Europe, Alaska, they have vitamin D generators. I mean, it's literally multiple infrared, ultraviolet rays that generate the vitamin D. It's fantastic. How did the Eskimos get their vitamin D? Okay, through fish. Okay, fatty fish, omega-3s. It's fantastically good for brain function and Alzheimer's. So wait till you see what we do on brain function, because you're looking at aluminum toxicity that we can't talk about as well. Exercise. You mean you're going to exercise your cold away? Yeah, if you can, because you're breathing, you're working, you're moving your lymph, you're elevating your blood pressure, you're getting your system to work better. Okay, it improves brain function, lowers your risk of heart disease. Breathing. I tell people, look, put some heat on their lungs, do deep respiratory action, because when you're breathing, that's a lot more in carbon dioxide. That's dead cells, it's molds, it's funguses. You've got to actually breathe. Proper nutrition. This is what eliminated most of those diseases. Fermented foods, it heals the gut. Your gut is 80% of your immune system. You've got to have good, healthy gut flora. These are 2 home remedies, okay? And I'm sure your grandma has got it. Super soup, onions, garlic, turmeric root, sea salt, black pepper. Heat it up, cook it down, take it. It's fantastic. If you're too sick, you can just breathe it in. This is from some friends that are from Brazil. This onion skin, the dried onion skin, as gross as that is, the garlic just sliced in the middle with the dead onion or the dead garlic thing on the outside. A lemon peel, you know, you squeeze the lemon in there and throw it in the whole thing in there. A little bit of honey, and you pour boiling water over it, let it sit for 5 minutes. Amazing. Amazing. Then you rest, you sweat, okay, because remember you want to elevate your body temperature. Quercetin and zinc, vitamin C, D, E. I mean, these are all things that help your immune system response. I mean, it just makes sense. Dealing with the physical, chemical, emotional stress, You need nerve supply, exercise, nutrition, rest. This is how you survive. You should be attracted to people who have a cold. Please give me that experience. Okay, sneeze on my child. Okay, this is good for your immune system. If you have the psychotic fear of other people, okay, please turn off the TV set and stop voting Democratic. Okay, wait, no, that's okay. Okay, so we're going to get into the world now where we can't, where censorship is king. And they literally will arrest you because you're considered a domestic terrorist. AB 2098, I think is the number in California, that they're going to pull licenses of anyone that says anything against the government narrative in California. So those of you who are watching it on the Fri station, Dr. BVIP, I'll see you soon. Those who are watching on Facebook and YouTube,